Nostalgic.
Movie review.
From nerdy.
Married man.
Hello,
Welcome back
everybody.
to the show.
Yes, welcome to New and Nostalgic. We haven't introduced ourselves the last two episodes. I'm Steven.
I'm David.
Woohoo!
We are new and nostalgic. Uh, Today we're looking at Steven's video game movie pick.
Yes. Last week we did the original versus remake, which we you know our feelings on it if you listen to it. If not, go back and listen to it. But yes, this is a video game adaptation of Werewolves Within. It's a weird thing because it's a small video game. If you ever played Mafia or
Among
Werewolf
Us.
or Among Us or Salem Witch Trials or any of those games, that's exactly this style of game. It's a very easy thing to adapt because it actually doesn't have much of a story. It just has kind of certain points it has to hit. So yeah, let's go ahead and
Werewolves Within was made in 2021. It's rated R and is an hour and 37 minutes. The synopsis is a feature adaptation of a video game where werewolves attack a small town. That's it.
yep.
The longer one, we got a proposed gas pipeline has created divisions within the small town of Beaverfield. When a snowstorm traps its residents together inside of the local inn, newly arrived forest ranger Finn and postal worker Cicely must try to keep the peace and uncover the truth behind the mysterious creature that has begun terrorizing the community.
Bum, bum, bum. And this movie is starring Sam Richardson, Melania Van Troop, George Basil, Sarah Burns, Michael Chernus, Catherine Curtin, Wayne Duvall, Harvey Gillian, Rebecca Henderson, Cheyenne Jackson, Michaela Watkins, Glenn Fisher, Patrick Walsh, and Annie Kruger, and Ritz as the dog.
It's the most
Um,
important character.
A lot of people will recognize mainly Melania Van Troop is the
Melina Van Trub.
yeah or whatever however you say her name. Sorry for not pronouncing your name right. I've actually met her in real life. She's a really nice person. But she's the AT&T girl for most of you. And then Sam Richardson has been in a lot of things recently. You've seen him in a lot. You've seen him in Mike and Dave Need a Date to a Wedding, We're the Millers. He was in Hocus Pocus 2. He's the Swamp Thing in the Harley Quinn TV series. He was in Senior Year. He was the main love interest in that. He's just been in a ton lately. This guy has been a really great actor in a lot of things, and I really love that they chose him for it.
Yeah. And like we said, this movie, the game it's based on came out in 2016. It's a Ubisoft game.
Yep.
And it was VR.
Yeah, it was on PlayStation VR,
Uh-huh.
which was interesting. It was their own version of, like you said, like the Mafia style
It's
games.
the whole whodunit murder mystery.
Yeah.
It's a very
For
interesting
those of you who
premise.
do not know that style of game, basically what it is that style of game is everyone sits around in a circle and everyone gets assigned a role. Most people are either citizens or in this case there's a werewolf. And all the citizens every night someone dies and they have all these debates back and forth of who they think the killer or the
The werewolf.
werewolf is, and they have to vote on who they think the werewolf is and kill that person. And if they kill a citizen, the game keeps going. If they kill the werewolf, the game's over. They figured out who the werewolf is, the citizens win. But if the werewolf kills everybody, the werewolf wins. And so your objective of the game is to either kill the werewolf or kill all the citizens. And so that's the style of game if you haven't played any of these styles of games. If you haven't, I definitely highly suggest it. It's a fun game to play at a party with like 6 to 10 people.
Mhm.
It's incredibly fun to do. Look up Mafia rules for that. I think Mafia is the best version of this game.
I haven't played this game. I looked up some gameplay and some other people playing it. I mean, it looks fun, but I haven't played it, so I know there's not a lot of direct video game comparison to this movie,
Yes.
which I mean kind of helped me because I enjoyed the movie a lot more. Not comparing it to the video game,
I
I
think
guess.
this is a really smart way to do a video game adaptation because there's not much to adapt. So you have a lot more free range on what the actual story is.
Hmm.
And I think that's why this is one of the highest rated video game movies as well.
Let's see. How did you feel about the movie?
So I really enjoy this movie. For me, I think this one is worth a buy. For most people, I say definitely at least rent it. Like rent it or buy it is definitely my kind of rating for this movie. It's definitely worth either one. I think this is a really fun movie. It's a fun whodunit. Don't go into this expecting a monster movie. If you do, you will not like this as much. Which I'm sure David probably, with werewolf being in the title, a lot of people think, oh, it's gonna have a lot of werewolf scenes. There's not a lot because you, like in the game, you don't see the werewolf until you figure out who the werewolf is.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy the movie as much as I thought I would. When I watched the trailer, I was like, "Oh, that looks like a fun movie," and it is a fun movie. I think it's worth waiting until it's on a streaming service to watch it.
Okay,
I don't know if I would spend money to watch this movie again.
fair enough.
It is fun, but it has some problems. I'd say it is flawed yet charming.
I mean, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, like I said, I think it's at least with the rent, and you're saying it's you wait till it to be streamed.
Yeah.
Or free to watch anywhere, and that's totally fair. Rotten Tomatoes score for this, we had an 86% and an 81% audience score. It came out in 2021, and it was an hour and 37 minutes long. So at least it's not a long film, too.
Yeah, it's not too long. It definitely could have been.
Yes. So we want to go to our highlights and downfalls then, our spoiler territory.
Yes. But before we do, next week we are looking at your good pick, which is going to be Prey.
Yes.
So watch that. It's on Hulu right now.
Yes, it is. Brand new kind of reboot of the series.
We will talk about it more.
Yes.
So watch Prey. Now on to spoilers.
All right, we want to go into downfalls first, like usual.
Sure.
All right. I really hate the guy hooked on a relationship that is over, but he still thinks there's a chance kind of thing in this movie. I don't like that storyline. I don't like it in anything. I think it's annoying in a lot of things. I know there are people that have these things where they just can't let go,
Hmm.
but to the same extent, it's like, ugh, how do you not realize that your relationship's over? You just moved away to a different state, far away from her. She's not answering your phone call. She's not answering your text. She doesn't want to talk to you. Like it's just the only time she calls you is when she needs something from you. Like it's not a good. It's a very toxic relationship, and he won't let go.
Yeah, I can understand that. I wasn't a huge fan of how long of a buildup this movie had. It just felt like it took so long for anything to actually start happening.
Yeah,
Uh,
I can
I
see
mean, I
that.
know there's, he's new ranger in a new town, and they got to introduce everything, and that's fine. But I feel like it just takes so long to do it,
Yeah.
and I just think there's a lot of unnecessary filling.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like when you play these games, there's certain people, like a lot of these games have a narrator for the story. And the narrator's job is to tell the story, and he's the one who knows who everybody is. And so this, instead of this movie actually having a narrator narrating the entire story, they just showed a lot of the storytelling instead of having a narrator telling the story.
Well, I think it's fine.
But
I'm
I
a
do,
firm believer that show don't tell can be
yeah,
so much more impactful. But the problem I have is just how long it took
it
for
does
anything to start
take
happening.
a long time. And I do admit that there's times where this movie does feel a little long, even though it's not a long movie. Like that, I do think there has some pacing issues,
It definitely
especially
does.
because when everything starts getting crazy, it just goes absolute bonkers for a while, but it doesn't happen till the end of the movie.
Well, one thing I will tell you that the trailer alludes to, it is advertised as a comedy horror movie,
Yeah,
and it is definitely not that. It is
more
pure
comedy.
comedy.
Yeah,
And that's one of my downfalls is I enjoy the comedy aspect of it for the most part. I mean, definitely some of the comedy doesn't land for me. It's just there's some points where I'm like, okay, well, okay, let's go. Uh, but I would have liked to see more horror elements within the movie, like more scares, more
yeah.
gore, more kills. I just didn't feel that. And I mean, I get it, but I just didn't enjoy it. I would have liked to have
I
more
think
scares in
I
it.
think I had seen a small review before I'd watched this, and I knew that it was mainly a comedy, so like I didn't have those expectations of it being a horror movie, which I can see if you're going to this expecting this to be a horror movie or a monster movie, you're going to be disappointed.
Well, I expected it to be a horror
Yes,
comedy,
yes.
not a
More
comedy,
like Babysitter or Ready or Not or Tucker and Dale versus Evil or
something
Happy
like
Death
that.
Day or one of those kind of style of movies, which this is in a lot of the same like categories as that, but I agree. It doesn't belong in that category. This doesn't have horror elements.
Yeah,
It has
horror just
more
kind of takes a back
it's
seat.
more comedy mystery than it is horror.
Yeah,
There is not any horror to this.
yeah. They try to do some like jump scares and stuff. It just doesn't land.
I really hate how Trisha's husband is so ridiculously handsy and creepy to
Yeah,
every female in this movie. I'm like, that's just weird because that's if they're saying this is like based off the game, they're saying that person that's they're playing the game with is that guy. And that's weird. Like if you have that guy in your friend group that's that creepy and handsy with everyone's wives or girlfriends or significant others in the group, that's just
I just
pudding
uh,
as hell.
I just wasn't a huge fan of that character until he got shot. Mainly
Yeah.
because at that point he actually started being funny
Yeah, exactly.
because he didn't die. It's just kind of sitting there like, I got shot.
One of the other big downfalls for me is when they got rid of all the guns. I was like, that's the dumbest thing you could have done.
Yeah, I mean, it was really dumb. I mean, I understand why they did it because they're like, we don't know who the killer is. We may as well not have any guns so that the killer has no chance to
But if
get
they
it.
think one's a werewolf, then you need something to fight against a werewolf.
Well, at that point, they weren't sure a werewolf was a real thing.
I
They
know.
were like, some people really believed in it, and then some people, it really drove home the fact that there could be a werewolf
Yeah.
or there might be a psycho killer throughout the town. And they're
Yeah.
like, it really keeps you guessing, like, if it's a real legend, but it's really, I mean, that's one thing I did like about it is that it could have been just a psycho killer. I mean, I'm glad a werewolf finally showed up
Yeah.
at some point, but
All right. What do you else see you have for downfalls? Or are we?
the movie I think tries way too hard to be funny at some points. Like it's really
Yeah.
just grasping at straws to get a laugh, and some of the characters were really cartoony in that aspect.
Hmm.
And I mean, they're trying to really drive home those stigmas and stereotypes of
Yeah.
these different types of characters and the humor and stuff. It's fine. But one of the two biggest ones, and then we can move on to highlights. Dr. Ellis, being an environmentalist, never actually talks about the environment.
Yeah.
She only talks about that she's an environmentalist. Other than that, the environment just doesn't matter to her, which it's dumb. But my biggest issue with it was there were not enough werewolves within the movie,
Yeah.
which I get why. Like, it's both a downfall and a highlight for me
Yeah.
because I do love that we finally got a werewolf at the end and
Yeah.
it was really cool scene. But I was like, I came here for the like even if they didn't show the werewolf, if they just showed like the arm or something, it would have been
Yeah.
cool. But I do understand why they
They could
didn't.
have subtly showed it a lot more than they did and had like more things like you said where like you see a tail around a corner or
Hmm.
something.
And I
Like
mean,
anything like that.
the movie does do a good job keeping you guessing who you think
Yeah.
the creature might be.
And I think that's one of the things of why they really did stick with not showing the werewolf at all because it would have gotten given more clues on who did actually did it.
Well, and I mean, honestly, I say that they do a good job at keeping you guessing, which they do. But if you just watch the first scene, you could tell who it is almost instantly. It's pretty easy to guess who it
I
is.
gotta say my second because this was the second time I watched it. I had watched this one time before with Jen, and the clues in this were so like on the nose.
It tells you like in the first scene.
And if you're paying attention enough, you will gather who it is. But I mean, that's also like one of the things with those games is if anyone slips up in the way they speak or anything, you're like, ah, you said that was wrong earlier, and yes, you're the werewolf. Everyone vote for her. She's the and it's one of those things where it's like
Mhm.
I don't know if it was done on purpose like that. It's one of those things where it's kind
I
of
think it was.
yeah,
I definitely think it was. And like going into more highlights, like I do like that keeps you guessing, but also I love the setting. This
Yes.
town, like being a mountain town and stuff, I love the
Because I think it's
snow and
Vermont or something, right?
yeah, it's called what did I say in the synopsis? Beaver Town or something.
Yeah.
But it's just so cool. I love it. And then I really like Finn's character and the chemistry he had with Cicely as well. It's really fun.
Yeah. I love the when he's like talking to Cicely at first and he's like, "You're a male man. I mean person. Gender's a construct." He's like not quite sure what to say and he doesn't want to offend her and everything. And it's kind of just a testament to the way society is now where it's like
Mhm.
no one wants to be offensive, but like we're so in our ways of how we used to say things that it's hard to adapt sometimes
Yeah.
to
Tread lightly, I guess.
yeah.
I think Cicely is a really fun character too, and her reveal is just so great. The twists and turns in this movie happen so frequently that it does keep the movie from feeling bogged down once the movie actually starts
Yes.
after that long build up.
Yes.
But I do like just the two main characters are the best part of the movie. All the
Oh.
other characters could like go eat shit and die, but
I mean, they all have their moments. I feel like
Mhm.
they're like they all have slight moments where you're like think it's really funny or a really stupid moment or really whatever, but like and it is just kind of like I think it was definitely done on purpose. Like these characters don't
Oh,
matter as much.
it definitely was, and they definitely played a lot of that with the comedy and
Yeah.
trying to make you just it's the stereotypical
Like
character.
I love when he meets Trish and she hands Finn a handmade white doll in a ranger outfit and it's completely white and it says it's you and he's like, "Yep, a pale looking me." Or I love like when he first discovers the first body and he walks back into the building and everyone's sitting there and he's got that like just blank look on his face and like, "Ranger, you look like you've seen a corpse." He was like, "Well, yeah, I did."
Oh, sorry.
There's one point, the dumbest character I think were the like kind of redneck-ish mechanic characters, and like the redneck mechanic guy character. I can't remember his name on the top of my head, but he has one of my favorite lines in the movie. He's like, "We definitely have some unknown knowns and some known unknowns." They're like, we think this, but we also need this, but we don't know this, but we don't know that. We think this, but we don't know. And it's like, and they all like talk about their suspicions, and I just laughed so hard at that. I was like, that's so stupid, but it's like kind of funny in the same way.
Yeah, this movie it's an interesting one. I'd say like go check it out. Some of the fun facts of the movie. I know which I actually didn't notice this one. I had to look it up, but apparently near the end of the movie, Parker uses a hidden blade mounted on a wrist.
You didn't notice that?
Like, well, I didn't
Oh,
get the reference at
oh,
first,
okay.
but
Bec-
apparently it's supposed to be a reference to Assassin's
yeah,
Creed.
because it was done by Ubisoft Studios.
Yeah,
Yeah, I noticed that one right away. I was actually gonna point that out because I was like, that's so cool. I just loved that.
I think it's really fun, but I was like, when I saw it, I'm like, oh, cool, like a wrist blade, but I didn't. It didn't click.
Yeah,
It should have clicked. But yeah, it was also another fun fact is Finn plays a song on the jukebox. It's called "The Sign" by Ace of Base.
yeah,
When he punches in the numbers on the jukebox, he types in 1993, which is the year that the album was
yep.
released. I think that's kind of funny.
Yeah, it's a really cool kind of touch. There's some small little like touches here and there. Like,
But apparently, this movie had a lot of production issues, and mainly because principal photography began in February of 2020.
yeah,
So the month before the pandemic started, like really kicked off. And then just throughout all of like COVID and stuff, this movie just had issues trying to get done, and I know they had to push it back.
yeah. Some of my other moments that I thought were really funny for me is like there's a point where they're all like holding guns at each other and they're like, "Are we really having a Mexican standoff right now?" And the Hispanic character in the movie is like, "Honey, don't say Mexican, just standoff." And then like there's one point where he's like running away. He's like, "I'll fuck you up so hard." And oh gosh, what was the other one? Oh, throughout the entire movie, Finn's always been the nice guy, and he always gets kind of like downfall for always being the nice guy and never like standing up for himself or standing up for what he believes in. And
Yeah.
at the end of the movie, I love it. This scene, he goes, it's fucking okay to be nice. Sorry for my language. It's effing okay to be nice." And then Flynn kicks the werewolf in the face, and you actually hear a dog yelp sound, and I loved that kind of like small little thing too. I just there's so many like small things with this movie that there's so many like funny moments for me, and going into this movie like as a comedy, I think there is more comedy that hits for me than doesn't hit.
See, and I'm the opposite. I think like 70% of the comedy doesn't work.
Okay.
I feel like there are some good funny moments, but I don't know, like it's a really mixed bag for me.
So for me, so like especially because this is kind of a bad video game and everything. For me, like especially doing my video game podcast as well, everyone besides the main characters felt and seemed like bad video game characters. And so for me, I just thought they did so perfectly at being those bad video game characters with the bad dialogue, with the dumb ways they act, with everything. And it's just like those games where you're like, what the hell? Like, why would that character do that? Like, that's
Definitely makes
so
you feel that way.
dumb. And it's like one of those things I fell in love with like the small things about this movie that just felt so natural for being a bad game.
I guess. I don't know. It was all right.
Yeah.
Do you have any other like highlights or downfalls you want to talk about?
Nothing that I can really say. I think that last couple scenes where everyone's just killing everyone and people are killing people randomly and like all these things, it's just so freaking funny to
Yeah.
me. Like this person shoots this person in the face and this blows up and this does this and this person has this person at gunpoint and this person strangles this person to death, and I was like, what the hell is going on in this last 25 minutes here? Like, holy crap.
But the last 25 minutes of the movie are definitely the best moments for me, that is.
Yeah. And then like the bear spray, like all the callbacks to like him having the bear spray and him being nice and
Yeah.
this and like the seventh sibling or the seventh born of each family being a callback and all of these like stories of like werewolves. Like I just there were so many like small details, and the more I've watched this movie, the more I've seen a lot of these like small hidden details that I didn't really notice that you have to like kind of search for, that made me appreciate it a little bit more.
Yeah, I guess maybe a second viewing might be warranted to give it another shot, but
Weirdly, I think I liked it more the first time I watched it, but I appreciated some of the smaller things the second time I watched it. So I didn't like the movie as much on my second watch.
okay.
So this probably isn't a movie I'm gonna watch over and over and over again. I
Oh,
might
definitely not.
watch it with a friend here and there who hasn't seen it, but it's not gonna be one that I'm gonna just pick to watch every time.
Yeah,
But this is of video game adaptation movies. This is one of the better video game adaptation movies, and it is regarded to a lot as a better video game adaptation than most.
yeah, I'd probably put it like middle of the road video game adaptation. Like, and mainly because I've only watched some of the gameplay.
Yeah,
And I mean it did what it set out to do, just like the video game did. It's
yeah,
the whole who done it, trying to figure out who the werewolf is. And I mean, it works. It's a decent, fun time, but it's still middle of the
yeah.
road.
But for me, like I said too, there's not much to this game,
Yeah.
so making an adaptation of this movie is kind of a cop out.
Yeah, and what's really hard about that is, I mean, they could go their own direction of just putting the details of the game and then building a story around it. But with it being not much of a game,
Because
it makes it not much of a movie.
the game basically is how good the players are at the game. It's not actually about the game itself being good. Like it's all about the players' interactions with each other that makes the game good. It's kind of like Among Us. Among Us is not a great game by itself. There's not a lot to the game itself. But when you have those arguments with your friends and you're trying to lie your way out of, I didn't do it, it was that person, you bastard. That is the moments that make those games as good as they are.
Oh,
Those are the
absolutely.
moments that everyone lives for. It's your time with your friends. It's not the actual game itself.
So what you're saying is this movie is better when you watch it with friends because it's going to be more enjoyable.
Probably, yeah. I definitely think. When I watched this with my wife, I had a lot more fun than when I watched it by myself. I did
See,
not like watching it by myself as much.
and I watched it by myself, and I just eh.
Because there was a lot of like dumb things that me and my wife just laughed at when we were watching it together, but and it was more fun to like talk about it during the movie. And this is a movie that you can have a conversation during because there's not a lot you have to pay attention to.
Yeah,
There's not a lot for it. So definitely think watch this movie with someone. Like David said, if you find it streaming somewhere for free. I think it was on Prime for a while. I don't know if it still is, but
yeah, I'm not
I
sure.
bought it, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So yeah, go check it out. Thank you for joining us today. Again, please join us next week with Prey.
Yes.
Have a good one.